41 years since the body of a young girl was found off IH-45 just outside of Huntsville. Authorities say she was naked, a pair of sandals with red straps a few feet from the body. She had been beaten and strangled to death. It would take more than 4 decades before science helped crack the case, known to locals as the Walker County Jane Doe.
For more than 4 decades, she had no name, no confirmed identity, no one to claim her. She was known only as Walker County Jane Doe, a teenage girl found beside a highway in Texas. Her life reduced to a case file, a forensic profile, and a question that remained unanswered for 41 years. This is the story of how that girl was finally identified as Sherri Jarvis, and how, for decades, the investigation remained suspended between evidence and absence. November 1st, 1980, Walker County, Texas. At approximately 9:20 a.m., a truck driver traveling along Interstate 45 near the Sam Houston National Forest noticed something unusual off the roadside. About 20 feet from the shoulder, in a patch of grass, lay the body of a teenage girl. He stopped and called police. When investigators arrived, they began documenting the scene. The location was specific, roughly 2 miles north of Huntsville, Texas, along a major interstate corridor. The body was positioned close enough to the roadway to be discovered quickly, but far enough to suggest it had been placed deliberately. Based on early assessment, investigators estimated that the girl had died approximately 6 hours earlier, placing the time of death near 3:20 a.m. That meant one critical detail. She had been alive just hours before being found. There were very few personal items at the scene. Around her neck, investigators found a thin gold chain with a rectangular brown pendant, containing a smoky-colored stone, blue or brown, depending on the light. Her ears were pierced, but no earrings were present. Nearby, officers recovered a pair of high-heeled red leather sandals with light brown straps. Later, witnesses would report that she had been seen carrying those same shoes while she was still alive. No other clothing was found. The scene itself was carefully documented. Photographs, measurements, positioning of the body relative to the road, the shoulder of the highway, the grass line, access points from the interstate. At that stage, the case contained only what could be directly observed: a body, a limited number of personal effects, and no confirmed identity, no known destination, no known origin. From that moment forward, the investigation expanded, but the foundation of the case remained unchanged. A teenager, found beside a highway, within hours of her death, with almost nothing to explain who she was. The Harris County Medical Examiner's Office conducted the autopsy and created a detailed biological profile. The victim was estimated to be approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighing between 105 and 120 pounds. She had hazel eyes. Her hair was light brown, around 10 inches in length, with a slight reddish tint. There was no indication that it had been dyed. Several identifying features were documented. A vertical scar, approximately 1.5 inches long, located near the right eyebrow. An anatomical variation, an inverted right nipple. Details like these would later become critical in attempts to match her to missing persons. Her overall condition suggested something else. She had good nutrition, excellent dental care, indicators that investigators often associate with a stable, possibly middle-class background. This was not a child who had been living on the margins of society, at least not for most of her life. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxia due to ligature strangulation. Investigators believed the ligature may have been pantyhose. Fragments of that material were recovered. The autopsy also revealed evidence of extreme violence prior to death. There were signs of severe physical assault, including widespread injuries across the body, swelling of the lips, damage to the right eyelid, a distinct bite mark on the right shoulder. Evidence also indicated that a blunt instrument had been used during the assault. These findings established several key facts. The death was intentional, the violence was prolonged, and the victim had suffered significant injuries before she died. Despite the level of detail documented by investigators, one essential question remained unanswered. Who was she? Because without a name, the case could not move forward. And without identification, there was no one to connect the evidence to a life. For years, that question would define the investigation. And for decades, it would remain unanswered. In the hours before her death, the unidentified girl had been seen alive. Multiple witnesses came forward after public appeals, providing a sequence of sightings that would become critical to reconstructing her final movements. On October 31st, 1980, at approximately 6:30 p.m., a girl matching her description was seen at the South End Gulf Station in Huntsville, Texas. Witnesses observed her exiting a vehicle. The car was described as a blue 1973 or 1974 Chevrolet Caprice with a light-colored top. It was driven by a white male, whose identity was never confirmed. The girl appeared disheveled. She approached individuals at the station and asked for directions to the Texas Department of Corrections Ellis Prison Farm. After receiving instructions, she left on foot. She was later seen walking north along Sam Houston Avenue. Not long after, she arrived at another location, the Hitch and Post truck stop, located near Interstate 45. Again, she asked for directions to the same destination, the Ellis Prison Farm. This time, she explained that she had a friend waiting for her there. A waitress at the truck stop drew a map and handed it to her. During their conversation, the girl provided limited personal details. She said she was 19 years old. She claimed she was from either Rockport or Aransas Pass, Texas. When questioned further, specifically whether her parents knew where she was, she reportedly responded, "Who cares?" Witnesses consistently described her clothing. She was wearing blue jeans, a dirty yellow pullover, a white knit sweater with large pockets extending below the waist. They also noted a detail that would later connect directly to the crime scene. She was carrying red high-heeled sandals with light brown straps. The same sandals later recovered near her body. These sightings formed a timeline. They placed her in public, visible locations. They established her direction of travel. And they confirmed that she was actively trying to reach the Ellis Prison Farm. Investigators focused first on that destination. The prison was canvassed. Inmates and staff were interviewed. Photographs of the victim were shown. No one recognized her. No one came forward with information connecting her to the facility. One investigator later noted that only one inmate matched her approximate age range, and no link could be established. The lead was exhausted. Attention then shifted to the locations she had mentioned: Rockport and Aransas Pass, two coastal communities in Texas. Investigators coordinated with local law enforcement. They checked missing persons reports, reviewed school records, examined high school yearbooks, searching for a face that matched the victim's description. Public appeals were broadcast in those areas. But no match was found. No family came forward. No school record aligned. No missing report connected to her. This phase of the investigation followed a clear method. Start with the most concrete statements. Verify them. Document what can be confirmed. And just as importantly, document what cannot. By eliminating those early leads, investigators clarified the scope of the unknown. They knew where she had been. They knew what she had said. But they still did not know who she was. On January 16th, 1981, more than 2 months after her body was discovered, the unidentified girl was buried. The location was Oakwood Cemetery in Huntsville, Texas, in a section known as Potter's Field, reserved for those without identification or family. Despite the absence of a name, the funeral was conducted with care. An open casket service was arranged. Community members attended. Authorities ensured that she was not buried without acknowledgement. A headstone was placed at the grave. It was donated. The inscription was simple: Unknown white female, died November 1st, 1980. For years, that was how she was remembered. Visitors would come, some out of curiosity, others out of quiet respect. A grave without a name, a life without an identity. But the case was never closed. Investigators continued to revisit it as new methods became available. In 1999, nearly 2 decades after her death, a decision was made. Her remains were exhumed. The goal was twofold: to obtain DNA samples for future comparison, to reevaluate her biological profile using updated forensic techniques. The new examination refined earlier estimates. Her likely age range was adjusted to 14 to 18 years, with the most probable estimate between approximately 14 and 16 years old. Younger than originally believed. Although this effort did not immediately lead to identification, it achieved something critical. It preserved biological evidence, it improved the accuracy of her profile, and it ensured that, as forensic science advanced, the case would remain viable. For decades, she remained Walker County Jane Doe, a case file, a forensic profile, a timeline without a name. But the groundwork had been laid. DNA had been collected. The details had been preserved. And the investigation, though quiet, was still moving forward, waiting for a method that did not yet exist. For decades, the case remained open, not solved, not forgotten, but suspended in time. The 1999 exhumation did not provide a name. It did not identify a suspect, but it did something just as important. It preserved the future of the case. Investigators secured DNA samples, refined the victim's biological profile, and created a bridge from the limitations of the 1980s to the possibilities of modern forensic science. At the time, those possibilities did not yet exist. But the decision to preserve evidence ensured that when they did, the case would still be viable. Years passed. The file remained active, but progress was slow. Then, in November 2015, the Walker County Sheriff's Office made a decision. The case would be officially reopened. A new phase began, one driven by updated forensic tools, expanded databases, and a different approach to public outreach. Investigators revisited the physical evidence. DNA testing was conducted on the red high-heeled sandals recovered near the body. The results of that testing have never been publicly disclosed. At the same time, efforts expanded beyond the laboratory. Authorities began monitoring missing persons databases nationwide. They coordinated with media outlets. They shared details of the case more widely than ever before. Images were released. Reconstructions were circulated. The goal was simple. Someone, somewhere, might recognize her. This was not the first attempt. Back in 1990, forensic artist Karen T. Taylor had created one of the earliest reconstructions. Her work was based on post-mortem photographs, but there were limitations. The only frontal image available had been taken after cosmetic reconstruction for the open casket funeral. Even the necklace had to be estimated in size, because no scaled reference image existed. Another rendering was later produced by a Walker County investigator. Years after that, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released additional reconstructions. One in 2012, another after the 35th anniversary of the case. Each image was an attempt to restore identity, to turn a forensic profile into a recognizable human face. They were widely shared, across television, across newspapers, across emerging online platforms. But no one came forward with a name. These efforts demonstrated both the power and the limits of forensic art. They kept the case alive. They maintained public awareness. But they could not answer the central question. Who was she? The answer would not come from drawings. It would come from DNA. In 2020, the investigation entered a new era. The Walker County Sheriff's Office partnered with Othram Inc., a company specializing in forensic genetic genealogy. The process was complex. Initial attempts to extract usable DNA from the remains failed. The samples were too degraded, but preserved tissue provided another opportunity. From that material, scientists were able to generate a viable genetic profile. From that profile, a family tree was constructed. This is where the case changed. By comparing the DNA to public genealogical databases, investigators identified living relatives. Those relatives were contacted. DNA samples were collected. And the comparison confirmed what had been unknown for over 4 decades. On November 9, 2021, officials made the announcement. Walker County Jane Doe finally had a name. She was Sherri Jarvis, 14 years old. She had run away from Stillwater, Minnesota, in 1980. Before the public announcement, her identity had already been quietly confirmed. In September 2021, forensic artist Carl Koppelman had shared the identification with investigators. The release was delayed to allow time for family notification and for grief. Sherri was known to friends by a nickname, Tati. Her story, once reconstructed, revealed a different beginning than investigators had assumed. At the age of 13, she had been placed under state custody. The reason was habitual truancy. Shortly after turning 14, she ran away. Her last known contact with her family was a letter, written from Denver, Colorado, in August 1980. In that letter, she expressed frustration. Frustration with the system. Frustration with her situation. But she also wrote something else. She said she intended to return home. She never did. For 41 years, her family did not know what had happened to her. After the identification, they released a statement. They thanked investigators. They thanked those who had worked the case. And they thanked the people who had visited her grave, even when she had no name. At Oakwood Cemetery, the original headstone was replaced. The new marker carried more than just dates. It carried identity, a photograph, her name, her nickname, and a message. Never alone and loved by many. The identification answered one question, the most important one, but it did not solve the case. The investigation into Sherri Ann Jarvis's death remains open. Now, however, it moves forward with something investigators never had before: a confirmed identity, a known origin, and DNA that can be used to pursue new leads. Theories have been explored, but none have been confirmed. One hypothesis, proposed by journalist Michael Hargraves, suggested the possibility of a female offender. This was based on several factors: the absence of semen, the nature of the assaults, the location of the bite mark. But the evidence does not support a definitive conclusion. Other details complicate that theory. The victim's necklace remained on her body, yet her earrings were missing. Most of her clothing was also gone. These contradictions make it difficult to build a clear offender profile. Investigators have also explored connections to other cases, including victims found along Interstate 45 in 1980. Some of those cases involved strangulation and similar patterns. The name of Henry Lee Lucas has been mentioned historically, but forensic evidence does not support a match. Specifically, the bite mark found on Sherri's body was inconsistent with his dentition. At this point, no suspect has been publicly identified. The case remains active. Investigators continue to review archived evidence, re-examine past tips, compare timelines across related cases, apply new forensic techniques as they become available. Because even after 41 years, even after identification, one question remains unanswered. Who did this to Sherri Ann Jarvis?
On October the 31st of 1980, a white female believed to be between the ages of 15 and 20 arrived in Huntsville, Texas. She was alone, but seen by several civilians that also talked to her while she was here. One of the locations of which she was seen or observed was a truck stop located just north of here in a restaurant. At this location, she talked to a couple of employees and asked for directions to the Ellis Prison Farm, and was provided with written directions. During this conversation, she told the individuals that she had spoken with that she was actually from the Rockport Aransas Pass area. On Saturday, November the 1st, 1980, at approximately 9:20 a.m., Walker County Sheriff's Office deputy responded to a call of a body located on the shoulder of Interstate I-45, just north of Huntsville, about a half of a mile south of the 1696 exit. The body had been reported by a citizen to have been located. The cause of death was later determined to be due to asphyxia, due to strangulation by ligature per the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office. The initial portion of the investigation was focused around identifying the victim and determining any possible relationship she may have had with the Texas Department of Corrections. Employees and inmates at this unit were interviewed with negative results. No additional information to proceed with the investigation at that point. A search of missing persons report revealed that there was no leads or media reports on the case, and no additional information as well, resulted in no positive information concerning the victim's identity. Investigators also traveled to the Rockport Ranges Pass area and interviewed law enforcement and school officials with negative results again. With this being the 41st anniversary of this horrible crime taking place, I would at this point in time like to reveal the fact that our victim has been identified. Sherri Ann Jarvis, date of birth 3/9 of 1966. And she was from Stillwater, Minnesota.
There will be pictures down there as well.
In July of 2020, Detective Bean, along with other detectives, Texas Ranger Doolittle, Orthram Labs, and Orthram Labs were authorized to begin forensic DNA testing in an attempt to form a DNA profile from tissue samples that were taken from the original autopsy. Orthram Labs was able to obtain a DNA profile, and the samples were used to start building a family tree. In March of 2021, Orthram Labs provided Detective Bean with what they believed to be 6 people that were either direct relatives of Jane Doe or they were possibly aunts or uncles. Detective Bean, with the assistance of Detective Phelps, were able to utilize internet resources to finish building out the family tree. While doing so, while doing this, detectives were able to locate information on all but one of the family members, that individual, and it was discovered that she had actually run away in 1980 and was 14 years of age. DNA samples were obtained from biological family members and turned over to Orthram Labs to be compared to the DNA sample from Jane Doe with a match, finding a match. All of the evidence was then compiled and released to the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science, where they confirmed the fact that we had an identity on Jane Doe as being Sherri Jarvis. I never like to refer to this case as being a cold case. It has always been a top priority of our department. We loved her as well. I would like to thank the Sheriff's Office, the Criminal Investigative Division, as well as the lead detective at this time being Tom Bean, for his drive and determination to not give up, as well as the partnerships that we have had assistance from, being the Texas Rangers, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Harris County Institute of Forensic Science, Orthram Tech Labs, and the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, and the past Sheriff's Office investigators that have spent many hours, many days, many months on never quitting and keeping this case alive.
At this time, we'd like to hear from Orthram Lab. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David Middleman from Othram, and we did the lab work to support the investigation. So there are a whole bunch of cases, unfortunately, just like this one, of folks that are unidentified. They're not going to be found in a traditional government database. This is a victim, so not someone that would have been tracked as a criminal or someone that had done something in the past. And what we do at Othram is we go back and re-examine for contemporary and also for these older cases, any evidence that's available. This case was incredibly complex, and there was a lot of work across multiple agencies to find evidence that was suitable for us to do the work we had to do. And so that shouldn't be forgotten. There's so much investigative work that precedes us being able to even do anything with evidence. But we were very fortunate in that we were able to secure some evidence that helped us steer to her identity. And what we do is we can take evidence that is very old, DNA that's been previously unsuitable or unusable in other methods and traditional testing processes, and we can pull genetic information, markers and such from this evidence, and use that, as you've heard from the sheriff, to build out long distance relationships. And in the case of someone like Sherri, for which there was really no evidence at the scene and no good clues, and she was so far away from home, and no one here locally in Huntsville would have known who she was, we were able to establish the long distance genetic relationships to folks that ultimately then were able to help us identify who she was. And I just want to say, as a parting point, this is technology that's very robust, and if you followed any of the work we've done, there's a whole bunch of cases here in Texas and elsewhere that are being sorted out now with successful outcomes like this one. So I think this technology is very general. You'll see it all the time. I always tell folks that it's an extraordinary opportunity anytime we can help name somebody, but I hope in the next few years it goes from extraordinary to ordinary, and this is just a routine thing. And I just want to double down on what the sheriff said. In this particular case, every case is different. In this particular case, there was a lot of complexities to getting the case off the ground, and it just was not possible without, obviously, Tom Bean and the Walker County Sheriff's Office, but also just tremendous behind-the-scenes support from the Houston FBI office and from the Rangers, and all of us have worked together on other Texas cases, and so just could not be more grateful to be in such a good group of folks.
Sir, could you spell your name and your company name, please?
Yes, sir. My name is David Middleman, Mittelman, and I'm the CEO of Othram, which is OTHRAM.
Thank you, sir.
This time, we'd like to hear from Agent White, Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I want to just thank our partners in this, Walker County Sheriff's Office, Texas DPS, Harris County Office, DA's office, as well as the Forensics Lab. This is an extraordinary case, as the sheriff said, and we putting resources together and using technology to solve some of our older cases that we have. This is going outside the norm of traditional law enforcement techniques, but here at the FBI, across the country, we're using this technique to try to help state and local officials solve some of the older cases that they have. Not just for the sheriff's office, but to bring closure to a family, to find the victim and find the offenders who prey on our innocents, just like the sheriff's case. Again, we will continue working with our partners, continue working with the private sector, as Orton mentioned, to bring some resolution to the family. As far as the Houston FBI is concerned, we're going to be here every step of the way. We're committed to this. Houston FBI has been named as a hub for the investigative genealogy technique that we used in this case. With that, I'll turn it back over to the sheriff.
Thanks, sir. Ranger, you want to say something?
I would just thank the Sheriff of Morgan, thank the FBI, Othram, the DA's office, everybody working together collectively to try to find resolutions and answers for these unsolved investigations. So we thank everybody for that.
Durham, District Attorney of Walker County.
Yeah, Will Durham with the Walker County District Attorney's Office. I was a child in 1980, just running around Huntsville. I remember when this happened. I'm just real pleased with all the work that's been done and the investigation and the technology that's advanced to the point where we're able to identify this young girl. And from a prosecutor's perspective, I just hope that this information will lead us to whoever did this, and if they are alive, they'll be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like Deputy Wells to read a statement from the family. Then at the conclusion of this, we'll go into an answer.
Good morning. Deputy Wells, and Lawson is spelled W-E-L-L-S. I'll be sharing with you guys the official release from the family of Sherri Jarvis. We would like to extend our sincere appreciation to Detective Thomas B. and all cooperating agencies and people involved in identifying Sherri and Jarvis remains. We would also like to express our gratitude to Morris Memorials for donating Sherri's headstone and all the people who visited her burial site throughout the years. We lost Sherri more than 41 years ago, and we've lived with a bewilderment every day since, until now, as she has finally been found. We contacted the Salvation Army and hired a private investigator in an attempt to locate her, but to no avail. The dedication of the aforementioned people led to our reunion with Sherri and provided a long-awaited, painful answers to our questions and on her whereabouts. Sherri Ann Jarvis was a daughter, a sister, a cousin, and a granddaughter. She loved children, animals, and horseback riding. She was a tender 13 years of age when the state removed her from our home for habitual truancy. Sherri never returned to our home as promised in a letter we received from her shortly after her departure. She was deprived of so many life experiences as a result of this tragedy. She was denied the opportunity to experience romance and love and marital bliss, the heartache and the pain of loss, the pure joy of having children or growing old and being able to reflect on some milestones afforded on a valiant lifetime. Our parents passed away never knowing what happened to her or having any form of closure, but we are grateful that they never had to endure the pain of knowing her death was so brutal. We take a measure of comfort in knowing that she has been identified, and where she is located so we can pay our respect at her final resting place. We will continue to support those seeking her killers because she did not deserve the death she received, and justice served to those who would commit such hideous act would be fitting tribute to Sherri. We love and miss you, Sherri, very much. You are with Mom and Dad now, Sherri. May you rest in peace.
Thank you, James.
I just want to say thank you to everybody involved, the FBI, Law Firm Labs, the sheriff for allowing me to investigate this case, the Texas Rangers. This wouldn't have been available. We wouldn't have been able to do this without everybody that's standing up here. Everybody that's here has been great. The family's been great. I'm happy that this is finally coming to a conclusion on this portion, and now we're going to get into finding out who did this to Sherri, and that's going to be one of the things that I'm looking forward to in finishing out my career here.
Again, as we've stated, we could not have put this together without the members of this team. You can't get anywhere without it. I'm so appreciative. I'm very appreciative of y'all being here today as well, and help us get this information out so that people do realize the fact that when a case gets older, it's not just going away. It's forever. And we're going to continue to work on it as long as we can. Fortunately, we now have the victim identified. So appreciative of that. We still have a lot of work to do, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, you could spell Sherri Ann and then confirm it was Stillwater, Minnesota, you said?
Stillwater, Minnesota.
Her name is spelled SHERRIANNJARVIS.
Perfect. Thank you.
Question in the back?
Yeah, you said you currently are now trying to find the suspect who did this to her. Do we have any leads on that as of right now?
We are working on everything. This is still an ongoing investigation, and we will follow through with everything that we can in order to identify the person who's responsible for this.
Did you ever find a tie to the Ellis unit? You said she was looking for the Ellis unit.
At this time, we have found no ties. Back in the day, they interviewed every employee. They interviewed every inmate that was there. Actually, Crime Stoppers have put up a reward, and there has never been anything that's come forward.
So family didn't know of anyone that could have been up there or anything like that? Okay.
Do you mind reminding us again in relation to where we are now, how far outside of town she was found on I-45 or just the general area where her remains were found?
Just north of the 118, about a mile and a half, it's about a mile south of the FM 1696 exit.
Okay.
So just kind of north of Huntsville, but not way out. It's, even in the 80s, it was still kind of close to town. Yes, sir.
I know a lot of the times we hear the term no stone was left unturned when talking about finding who this person was. For the investigation right now, what are the steps taking place as of today?
There are multiple steps taking place. I can't really go into those. There's other investigations that are very similar to this that have happened within the state of Texas, so we're working with those agencies and trying to identify a suspect in those as well. We're also backtracking and talking to family members and trying to find out exactly where Sherri was, and we're going to try to find any connection that we can in those locations as well.
And that's part of this partnership that you see up here. We're all going to be pulling together and working together. Again, there's things that we can't get into, but there is new information that has come developed after the identity of Sherri has been known. But we're going to rely on this partnership and we all come together. It's a force multiplier. Yes, ma'am.
Was she reported missing in Minnesota, and if so, when?
She was reported missing in Minnesota. It would have been in the 1980s when she ran away. She actually was not in her family's custody when she ran away. So it would have been the agency that actually had custody of her at the time that reported her. Unfortunately, we're unable to find that because the records have been purged since then.
Just anything more I'd like to say on having a little bit of closure on this. Obviously, still need to find her killer, but we heard the statement from the family as the deputy read. But just for you guys staying on this case for so many years now, from 1980 to now, I'm sure you'll have a little bit of satisfaction that we know one more piece of the puzzle on this.
Yeah, there's no doubt. The first thing you have to do in order to solve crime is you have to know who your victim is. In order to find out and try to create suspects and things of that nature, and to pursue your investigation, you got to know what direction to go. So that's one of the first things that you do in any criminal investigation is you've got to try to identify your victim in order to proceed.
You said new technology or technique was used in this. How old is that technology or technique?
So a lot of the work that, so our company started in 2018. The techniques the techniques we used in this case, actually some of them were developed in the course of this actual case and are about a year old. And so I think it's important to note the technology is new. 5 years ago, they would have been nowhere to do this kind of work. But not only that it is new, but it is accelerating maybe every 6 months. And I think you'll see a larger and larger number of cases that can be included in this technique next year and the year after. So it's very exciting, but it's also very new. And so it will take some time, but we'll not instantly deploy to all cases.
Can you go into detail what that technique is?
Yeah, we use a process, it's called forensic grade genome sequencing. And it's a big fancy word that basically means that we can take forensic material that ordinarily wouldn't be suitable for this kind of DNA testing, and we can basically prepare that DNA such that we can read information from it. So it's being able to unlock information, investigative leads from crime scene evidence that's just previously been locked away. And so it's cause for optimism. There's probably, as you heard, dozens of other cases, some related, some not, that may have evidence that has been intractable in the past. And with this rapid acceleration of technology, we can go back now and re-examine cases that have been deemed unsolvable or cold and see if now there's technology that can access that information. And it's a real testament to investigators, by the way, who in the 80s probably did not anticipate any of the folks up here standing and doing what we're doing to have done the work necessary to, as they do with all cases, to preserve, document, and catalog all the evidence at a crime scene. So also exciting as well.
Any other questions? Again, there's no more questions. Thank you all very much for coming. There will be a copy of the statement from the family up here on the table, as well as photographs. And I'll be around the room if you have anything. Again, thank you so much for everyone's time.